my question to you, I've walked into some machine shops, and of course, you see all these different machining tools, equipment, and stuff. So, could you, give us or the people listening kind of a layout of the types of machinery that you use there in your shop to produce these tools you make?
Yep. This behind me is like my cellar is a walk-in cellar because a lot of these like that is like 2,500 pounds. They're not. There's guys that will get those in their cellar, but thankfully I have just doors that open up out into my driveway. So, but I have a manual. What's in terms, it's called a Bridgeport or a knee mill. That's just a standard milling machine that you'll see in any basic shop. And then to this guy is my CNC. This is basically a computerized version of that. And then I have my CNC lathe, which I think you can see that guy right there. That is my that's just a regular manual lathe.
Right.
And the computerized. So like if I'm doing knobs for squares or something where I need to make like 100 knobs, that is so suited. Like a perfect example is like on a normal run of squares where I make around 100 a year, it would be 2 weeks, 10 to 12 days of evenings making them manually. And then once I got that, it was 8 hours to make 100 knobs.
Oh, wow.
Because once the program's there, and it's one of those things that it's like, yeah, I can make it. This is where I get a little pushy with CNC, where people kind of poo-poo it. It's like, if I make that manually, you have to pay more for something that, there's a trade-off.
Right.
It's just a standard knob, but an example is like this is the cap iron that holds the blade in one of my block planes, where this knob is all fitted, the wood's fitted, it's all hand finished. That's where I'd rather spend my time.
Right.
While that thing is just cranking out just a simple knurled knob, and that's where it really shows itself. So.
Yeah. Sometimes automation's got to come in. It's going to, in return, it's going to help the consumer as far as cost, help you, because the amount of stuff you got to make. Yeah.
Yep. And then behind me, you really can't see. I'm mirrored, so it's weird. There's what's called a surface grinder, and that just makes things extremely flat and very shiny. There's just no other way to put it. So, but it just puts a nice finish. I'll use that to finish the sides of squares to make them perfectly parallel. Because, you have to think you have a parallel blade, and if your body isn't parallel, it may be square on one side. But if you flip it, then you'll see the error. So that's where that machine shines. And then in front of me is just a traditional wood shop. I have a wood lathe, a nice Laguna, and then I have a table saw, a couple band saws, and chop saw. Nothing crazy.
So just to go on a little bit more. Sorry, Jake. I'm just.
You just run over me, dude.
Okay, I'll do it. So, back in our drag racing days, when we used to do it, I know Jake did it too, but we had to end up bringing it in my old shop. We brought a Bridgeport in. So I'm just curious, being in a residential place, as far as power consumption and stuff, like our Bridgeport was 3-phase,
Yes.
And so
I'm out in the country. Like my house is in the middle of a cow pasture. So, and that's a country kid that just walked by. So it's, thankfully the CNCs run on like 220 single phase, but yes, the manual lathe, the surface grinder, and the Bridgeport are all 3-phase, but the Bridgeport and the surface grinder run off of VFD, a variable frequency drive.
Yep.
That's a real down and dirty, easy way to get 3-phase.
Correct.
You sacrifice a touch of horsepower, excuse me, where that's like a 3 horsepower motor. It's now 2 horsepower. but the work I do, I don't see a drop in horsepower. And then, excuse me, and then my manual lathe, I have a rotary phase converter for that, and that helps. So,
Nice.
Cool.
I'm going to run over Jake too and do some questions from the chat.